Cloyster is a Gastly that has inhabited the shell of a Shelder. It's one of my all-time favorite Pokemon theories, and it goes back all the way to the beginning of the franchise. I mean, you just had to look at the design of the Pokemon to immediately know that this had to be true back when the games first came out. I mean, look at the eyes. Those are Gastly eyes. That mouth is a Gengar mouth, so clearly this is a Ghost-type Pokemon. You can also justify it being Water-type since it's inhabiting a Shelder, which was a Water-type Pokemon, so we end up with a Ghost Water Pokemon if everybody's headcanon at the time was to be believed. And this is an idea that has been expressed among the fandom everywhere. You can simply Google Gastly Cloyster and you'll find tons of Reddit threads and discussions talking about this very idea. But today we want to find out how good this Pokemon would be if it were actually a mishmash of the Cloyster and Gastly lines. Now, Cloyster is typically one of the best Pokemon in the Gen 1 game. It ranks 7th overall out of 151 Pokemon with a 480 base stat total, with the biggest chunk of that being its massive 180 defense stat. That was one of the theories that always led to people thinking why a Gastly would want to inhabit the shell of a Haunter to get more defense. Since the Ghost Pokemon are usually defensively very weak, by inhabiting the shell, they get significantly stronger. And when you add on the fact that Cloyster already has really good attack and special and pretty decent speed at 70, it's pretty clear that this Pokemon could have just been a trade-off for the Gastly. Go from having really high special and speed to instead having really high defense. And I can headcanon a lot more here. Why do we have the slow growth rate? Because Gastly doesn't normally inhabit the shell of a Shelder, so figuring out how to actually use that shell effectively causes it to grow at a slower rate than a normal Gastly would. See, this all makes perfect sense. But then when you think about a Cloyster's normal moveset, there's more similarities. Normally, Cloyster would start the game with Supersonic, a move that causes confusion, just like Gastly in Gen 1 starts with Confuse Ray, just a Ghost-type more accurate move to do the exact same thing. So this got me wondering how it would be if we simply took Cloyster, mashed it together with Gastly, and saw what the resulting Pokemon would be. And in order to do that, I decided to update this Pokemon's typing and its moveset. I have replaced Supersonic on the normal starting moveset of Cloyster with Confuse Ray. That is the move that Gastly would have in a normal challenge. And I replaced the move Aurora Beam with Nightshade. Since we're no longer an Ice type, it doesn't really make sense to start with an Ice type move. Nightshade is effectively the best offensive Ghost type move in Gen 1, even though it only does fixed damage. It could still be really useful in a lot of spots. I kept Withdraw and Clamp since they're very thematic with this Pokemon. Then I also updated the level up learn set a little bit by adding Hypnosis at level 27 and Dream Eater at level 35, which I think are going to be really interesting to test out on this Pokemon. And I updated the TM learn set to just be a mishmash of the two. That means that we've got a Cloyster that can still learn its water type moves and ice type moves, but will also learn Mega Drain, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Psychic, and of course Dream Eater via TM. This might be enough to take Cloyster and simply make it the single strongest Pokemon in the entire game, given that it now gains some resistances and type immunities. It's no longer going to have to worry about normal or fighting type moves and be resistant to poison. But on the other hand, it still maintains quite a few weaknesses to grass and electric that are completely unchecked. And when we get to Agatha, if she uses Lick, it will technically be super effective, though we do have a massive defense stat, so that's probably a non-factor, but still, I want to test this out and just see how it goes. So today, as we step outside of Pallet Town, Professor Oak's going to reveal that he's been watching Ghost in the Shell too much by catching this ghost in a shell right outside of town, and he's going to take us back to the lab to research this one a little bit. And it's time for his grandson to learn a little bit about the trick part of Trick or Treat here, as he's going to pick up that Eevee thinking that he's pulled one over on us, but we have a Ghost-type Pokemon in our Ghost Water Cloyster. So as we get into the rival number 1 fight, we can literally do anything because he cannot damage us because we are a Ghost-type Pokemon. And with that, I'm just going to go into Clamp and just stunt on him here. Normally, you would just destroy this one anyway because you have massive defense, but hey, we get through nice and easy. And with this type change, the early game should be super easy for this Cloyster. Consider that we're going to basically be immune to all damage for this early part of the game, except we'll be resistant to poison type moves. And that's really all you face before Misty, is just normal and poison type moves. So the only move in this section that could actually deal significant damage to us is Bide from Brock's Onyx. And that's only if we actually give it the chance to use Bide. We've got 4 times super effective same type Clamp, which is probably going to 1 or 2 hit KO there. So honestly, I don't think we have any issues going in this early section. Now, it is worth noting I've done a few test runs with the Ghost typing before, and it's very interesting to see the ways that the AI reacts to this typing, because it completely throws off some of the calculations where sometimes an opponent would never use a certain move, but now it's their only effective move against this Pokemon, so they have to use it. And that can actually lead to some spots being harder than in a normal run. We'll just have to see how it goes though. So Brocky Boy attempt number 1, let's get into this. So Brock leads off with his Geodude. I'm going Clamp, and we are going to 2-hit KO this Pokemon, but that's an easy victory as we get to level 7. Onyx comes out next. It tries to go Screech. It fails, and then we just 2-shot that Pokemon as well, getting to level 8. So 3 minutes 35 seconds to get here, including my rambling as I do live commentary. Really not too bad. And from now, our Ghost in the Shell can pretty easily get through this next section. I mean, we're obviously overpowered, but we also can't really be affected by anything. So I'm just going to crush all of these trainers nice and easy, and let's get to the end of Mount Moon. But as we're on our way, one thing that I want you to note about this Pokemon as we go through is that because we've adjusted our Pokemon to be a water Ghost type, we do have a few key differences from a normal Gastly. One, of course, is the fact that we can be poisoned here, and that could affect some battles as we go through the game. The other thing to note is that the way that AI works in Gen 1 is really rudimentary. So they basically just do a bunch of simple checks on type effectiveness when deciding which moves to use. In this particular run, that's going to have an effect in terms of causing us to sometimes get moves used against Cloyster that would not normally be used, because in some cases the AI will just start randomizing against us because it thinks all of its moves are resisted, something I think we'll see on Misty, or there might be a weird situation with like an opponent using Confuse Ray that thinks that move is super effective even though it deals no damage, so we end up just having Confuse Ray used against us over and over again. So it's going to be really interesting to see how some of these battles change as we go through the run. Misty will be our first chance to really see that at work, so I'm going to just take a look at her AI as we get there to really see how it goes. But of course, we've got to get there first. And in Mount Moon, there's really not much to do. I've picked up the Water Gun TM just in case, but I mean, already we've got Clamp, which is significantly better as long as it hits. So I don't think we're ever going to actually learn that move. Even Bubble Beam, I don't think is worth it to put on this Pokemon because of the fact that we already have Clamp. 2 Clamps is already stronger than a Bubble Beam. But we'll worry about all that later. For now, we have made it to the final Super Nerd here in Mount Moon. He leads off with the Grimer that cannot damage this Pokemon. I'm just going to confuse him for the sake of doing it, and then we can just Clamp in order to pretty quickly take this Pokemon down. Out next comes the Voltorb, which does not know any electric type moves, so we can just confuse it, and really we could just go Nightshade or whatever here. It's going down in just 2 turns after that. Finally, we've got the Coughing. It's the only Pokemon that can affect us with Smog, but it's not like it's going to do any damage, and we easily knock it out anyway as we get to level 13. We will pick up the Dome Fossil because clearly the Gastly in the shell is all about protecting its dome. That's why it put on the massive layers of armor. Anyway, let's fight Jesse and James. This should be a super easy fight. They lead off with Ekans. I'm just going to Clamp this Pokemon, and it goes down in 3 hits. The Meowth can do literally nothing to us, so we're just going to sit here and spam Nightshade and just watch it go down in 3 turns as well. And that brings out the Coughing. It tries to go Smog. Smart play. That was the only move that could actually affect us, but then it just gets clamped down and we win, getting to level 14. But with that done, it's worth noting that at least in a normal run, Cloyster can go directly to Misty because she's only going to use Tackle in the normal battles, and that would lead to her just never being able to really do damage, because essentially the Gen 1 AI would just look and say, oh, it's water type type moves are resisted, so Misty would never use Water Gun or Bubble Beam. In this one, however, she will use those moves because she thinks all of her moves are resisted, and that could actually result in us taking at least significantly more damage since we're going to be under leveled. So I want to see how this actually works out if we try this at our current level 14. So Misty attempt number 1, I'm going to just go ahead and use Confuse Ray on this Staryu as she X defends. Now I'm going to go for Nightshade, but the first thing you'll see right here is that she used Water Gun on us because it's a move that can actually affect us. However, we'll also see this Staryu sometimes use the move Tackle because the Gen 1 AI does not differentiate between moves that have no effect and moves that are resisted. So she's actually just a 50-50 shot to use both moves here with her Staryu. Still, we get through nice and easy and get to level 15 as Starmie comes out. But now Starmie's gonna have the same interaction. It's 50-50 to use a water type move, either Water Gun or Bubble Beam, or 50% of the time it will use Tackle or Harden because it just thinks all of its moves are equally effective against us. Here she X defense turn 2, she goes Harden turn 3, which obviously doesn't matter. She hits herself again turn 4 and then tries to tackle. So we beat Misty on the first attempt, getting to level 16, 10 minutes 6 seconds to get here. But it's really just interesting to see that aspect of Gen 1 AI, that the AI actually doesn't know the difference between not effective and resisted. And there could be a lot of spots where that interaction then causes our opponent to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do against this Pokemon. I'm looking especially at the Champions Cloyster at the end of the game. For now, we're going to have to take on rival number 2. He should be pretty easy. He leads off with a Spearow. I think the only play is just to clamp this Pokemon. Like, it can peck and deal damage, though we have a lot of defense. Sandshrew comes out next. We'll just go clamp since it's super effective. Rattata can do literally nothing, so I'm just going to sit here and spam Nightshade on this Pokemon and just let it go down. And finally, we've got the Eevee. This Pokemon can lower our accuracy, which is the only reason I'm going to go for clamp here after getting it in Confuse Ray, but then I misclick and I actually get hit by the sand attack, which is terrible. Still, we can get it in a clamp, and once we do, it will go down. We will never take any damage there. Eventually, we would just get to struggle and win that way if nothing else could hit. So while the rival can try to cheese and make that a super tedious battle, he actually cannot win once we get to the final 2 Pokemon, and that's all that we needed. We can now move on in the game. Let's make our way up to Billy Boy's house and show him how our little Gastly is wearing its Halloween costume this year. He's definitely going to want to combine with this one instead of whatever he combined with before. Pretty sure it was a Vaporeon. And here as we get to the last trainer before we get to Billy Boy's house, this is the only one that's actually kind of different up here. Normally you would have Aurora Beam here, which would just one-hit KO, but here we're actually going to get hit by Absorb and they're going to regain a little bit of HP on us. Still, it shouldn't really matter as long as we don't get a bunch of sand attacks from this Pidgey, which is why I just go clamp there. And now Nightshade should finish the job against this Oddish. Sure enough, it does, and we have made it to Billy Boy's house. So let's pop up in here as our Phantom Pikachu shows up to give reactions to whatever Billy Boy's been doing. This is incredibly confusing, but clearly I forgot to remove those from the hacked version of the ROM. However, we have met Billy Boy, and he's so impressed by this Cloyster, because he's always been trying to see Lorelei's clam, that he gives us access to the SSN. And we know he has a thing for water-type Pokemon because we can clearly check that he hasn't cleared his browser history. Seriously, one of these days, if I ever get a sponsorship from some random VPN or something, that's obviously the place where the VPN sponsorship's going to come in, because you got to protect your privacy online, clearly. Somebody call NordVPN and tell them to give me a bag. Anyway, with that being done, we can now make our way down south. We're going to go and fight against Lieutenant Surge, and this could be our first actual challenge in the entire run. We'll just have to see if it actually works out that way though, or if he just punts, because of the fact that effectively 3 of his moves will not even have an effect on our Cloyster, Growl included, because we're not using any physical moves here. He could just get completely wrecked, but we'll just have to see. But before that, of course, we have to come in here and fight against the rival 3. So I'm just going to recover some PP and clamp, and let's get into this one and see how it actually goes. The rival leads off with his Spearow, and he's now actually smart enough to know that he has to use Peck to damage our Pokemon, but we're not going to give him a chance. We're just going to go for Clamp and knock that one out. Rattata, we can literally do anything because it cannot damage us, so it's just a 2-hit KO. Sandshrew, I'm going back to Clamp just because it's super effective and gets the one-hitter, and we're going to stick with Clamp on Eevee just so that he doesn't spam a bunch of sand attacks and make this tedious. And we easily win on the first attempt against the rival, but that was all to be expected. He's not actually going to be a challenge for us until we get to rival number 5, and even then we might just be able to destroy him. But with that, I am going to try Surgiboy here because I want to be able to use Fly efficiently later on in the run, and he may just give me a free win. So let's get into this and find out how it goes. And after digging through the trash for a small eternity, we have made it to Surgiboy, so let's see if he goes down on the first attempt. So Surge attempt number 1, I'm going to lead off with a Confuse Ray on his Raichu. He uses X speed, which doesn't really matter. But now we need to look at the ranges. We're going to get a 4-hit KO with Nightshade here, so I think our best play is simply to go for Clamp. If he goes Thunderbolt though, we get 1-hit KO'd. Now if this were Pokemon Red and Blue, he would actually be very likely to use Thunderbolt because he has Smart AI in that version. But here in Pokemon Yellow, he does not have Smart AI, which is why he can go for things like Growl. And here we can see Clamp did pretty decent damage, so we're just going to need to actually land the hits. He's growling a bunch of times at us this time, and after one more Clamp, we're going to get him in the range to simply knock him out. And just like that, we beat Surgiboy on the second attempt, getting to level 22. We're staying on minimum battles here. 22 minutes, 11 seconds. It's really not too bad, just the one reset. And honestly, Surge, he'll just punt often enough that the best strategy in a solo run is generally just to come directly to fight Lieutenant Surge and not really care if he beats you once, because you can just reset with pretty much any Pokemon and get a victory eventually there. So honestly, I've seen some solo runners do like 20 runs against Brock in order to get a perfect split or something. There's no reason why, if you were doing a speed run, you wouldn't just simply do like 50 runs against Surge in order to do the same thing, because eventually you will beat him on the first attempt, and then you can just move on in the game and have a much more efficient routing. That's just my opinion anyway. I just don't have the patience to do like 1,000 runs with a single Pokemon just to get the luck to, you know, get a good Surge split, which is why I don't speed run. But if you're going for like the best possible time, that would be the way to go. But now that we've beaten Surge, we actually get an additional benefit in this run, which is that our Ghost in the Shell can learn the move Thunderbolt because it is a Gastly. And that means that we can replace one of our moves with Thunderbolt here. And I'm actually going to replace Nightshade because Thunderbolt will give us some nice coverage against water-type Pokemon, and that could solve a lot of problems, including the rival's Cloyster. So I'm just going to slap that on, and now let's make our way through to the next section, where it's time to see how we actually do as we get into the wrapping last fight. This is like the only case where we probably would have wanted to keep Nightshade, but I still think we can get through eventually as long as the clamps actually hit. We successfully managed to take the first Oddish down at least, and the Bellsprout's only damage dealing move is Wrap. So as long as we don't get like paralyzed, we should be just fine. She is smart enough to try to use Stun Spore here, thinking it's a grass type move and we're weak to it. So unfortunately, we did get paralyzed. I just barely missed the range there, but I'm going to react to that by trying to use Confuse Ray just to speed things up here. And since Bellsprout can't actually damage us with anything, using Growth is actually its best strategy, because at least by raising its special, it's going to be more likely to survive against our damage dealing moves. So maybe a small mistake to forget Nightshade right away, but still we get through on the first attempt there with no real issues. Everything else here I expect to be super easy, so let's just make our way to the rock tunnel. Now here against these Pokemaniacs, normally we would be in a kind of tough spot because we wouldn't have a good move for these Slowpokes, but Thunderbolt, well, that's just a one-hit KO, at least with a crit, so we get through there. We can easily progress in this challenge. And Clamp, because it traps opponents, actually makes it pretty easy to get through the grass types down here. So we've made it to the Rock Tunnel Hiker. He is the midpoint in a minimum battles run. And I honestly think we're going to do minimum battles with this Pokemon. So let's just Clamp against these Geodudes. And when they self-destruct, they don't deal any damage. And we're not weak to Rock Throw. So this is just super easy to get through these three Pokemon. The Rock Tunnel Hiker just doesn't understand what happened to him here. Still with that, we can now progress through the rest of this section where we should have a pretty easy time getting through the last couple trainers. And let's make our way over towards Celadon City. I'm not sure we want to go straight to Erica in this one, but we could pick up Psychic as a strategy there. Sorry, the timer may have run off quite a bit right there. I got a call from my grandfather back in the United States and had to pick it up. This is one of the reasons why I no longer would even try to get a super fast time in most of these runs, is because when you add in the baby boy plus, family wanting to check in on the baby boy, it sometimes becomes completely impossible to actually sit and record in peace. So pausing the timer is a thing that I usually would do, but if I forget, well, there's nothing to do other than to just keep doing the run. I'm not going to go back and restart this one just because Grandpa called. And that is why I would argue that speedrunning is a young man's sport, because once you actually, get some responsibilities, speedrunning, I mean, it might be a necessity in order to get a run done without interruptions, but at the same time, there's just a 99% chance that if you're trying to do something as fast as possible, somebody is going to come along and interrupt that activity. Especially the baby boy will choose just that time that he really wants daddy's attention. So just be aware that I probably wasted a good 10-15 minutes right there. So if you want to know how fast I'm actually going, knock that time off. But now as we make our way to Celadon City, we can actually get access to two really useful TMs in Ice Beam and Tri Attack, both moves that we might use later on. I'm also going to go get access to Psychic, since that move would also be learnable by a Gastly, but I think Dream Eater might be the better play. There may be a lot of spots where we want to put our opponents to sleep and then just use Dream Eater to chip them down with like one other coverage move. However, in this one, I think the best play is absolutely to go into the Rocket Hideout here just to gain some additional levels, but for the sake of a little bit of efficiency, I'm going to learn Psychic over Confuse Ray. I will keep Withdraw since it is a badge boosting move, but I think this is going to be enough to get us through this section pretty darn easily. And we can quickly make our way to the basement to fight Jesse and James, and with a Cloyster that also knows the move Psychic, this should be incredibly OP, but we don't actually one-shot against the Coughing. It's a 2-hit KO. Are you kidding me? We still get through that Pokemon just fine, and of course Meowth is a non-factor here. But this is kind of sad that we did not one-hit KO that Pokemon with a super effective move, and it all comes down to the fact that we don't have as high base special as a normal Gastly would have, and we're at a lower level than a Gastly would normally be here, because normally you'd be in that medium slow level up group. So we do one-shot the Ekans, but not the Coughing. That makes me think we're probably not going to one-hit KO against the Jesse and James fight in Lavender. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But for now, it's Giovanni time. This should be a cakewalk, but let's see if we actually get the win. He leads off with Onix. We go for Clamp and just one-hit KO that Pokemon. Rhyhorn, we miss Clamp, but we hit the next one as he just guard specs, so that's an easy victory as we get to level 27. We get to learn Hypnosis, and I'm going to learn this move over Withdraw. Yes, Withdraw is a badge boost glitch move, but I think our defense is already high enough, and I really want to see if the broader move pool of this Pokemon is enough to allow it to win without the badge boost glitch, because that would be your normal strategy with a Cloyster, is to badge boost and just let Clamp become super OP. But I'm actually gonna kind of kneecap this Pokemon just to see. Here now against the Persian, of course, we can't be damaged, so we'll just go for Thunderbolt over and over again and get a pretty easy victory on that one. But I may have just made the biggest mistake of this run. We're just gonna have to find out as we actually progress though. Still, learning that this Pokemon does not one-hit KO a Coughing with a super effective move is really going to make me think twice about going to fight against Erica. Like, yes, we could outspeed and use Hypnosis to put our Pokemon to sleep, but I don't think it's actually going to be that good. I think we would need multiple turns of them staying asleep with Ice Beam or Psychic, so I'm going to come fight Rival 4 first. Here against Rival 4, we've got a super effective move in Thunderbolt for the Fearow. I'm just going to use that twice to knock it out. If it did go go mirror move, that would have been bad, but we get through just fine. Now Clamp is probably all we need for this Magnemite. Sure enough, we knock it out. Shelder comes out, and it's not a Ghosst-type, and it gets one-hit KO'd by the Thunderbolt. Clamp for the Sandshrew is a one-hitter, and now we can do anything here, but I guess let's just go Psychic on this Eevee because we can. And yeah, it could do nothing. Even with the effectively worst move there, we just destroy that Eevee because it can't damage a Ghost. That is the last time we will see Eevee, though. He's going to go upgrade that one, knowing he needs something better to beat us. And for now, we can come up into the Lavender Tower, where against these channelers, Psychic is more than enough to one-shot the Gastlys. We're going to get to the top nice and easy, so let's check in on Ghosty Mama. And as we get to the top of the tower, we're going to meet the Ghost Marowak. And last time I said we should glitch for a cause, right? You know, be kind to the poor Mama Marowak who lost her baby. And tons of people got angry at me in the comments. What is this about? Like, I get that people don't like the Pokédoll glitch. So this time we will not glitch for a cause. We will simply use Clamp to destroy it. Now we make our way to the top with Jesse and James. And let's just see how we do here. Obviously, against this first Meowth, it can do literally nothing. So we're just going to knock it out with a couple of Thunderbolts. Now on Arbok, I'm going Psychic. We're actually slower than this Pokemon too, but it's just a 2-hit KO. We get through nice and easy when it tries to go Bite. And against Weezing, we at least resist all of its moves. Psychic's gonna be a 2-hit KO. It hits Sludge and poisons us, but that's not really a big deal. We're just gonna get through nice and easy. So we'll run up here poisoned as we meet Mr. Fuji. He's gonna make us go to his house to get a flute, in spite of the fact that our Pokemon is slowly dying of poison. He's like, this is okay. This is perfectly fine. You need to come get this flute, buddy. Clearly the best NPC in Pokemon. But now we have a choice to make. We can either go down to Koga's gym, we can go try to take on rival number 5, or we can take on Erica. I'm going to go try to take on rival 5 here. I think this is the best play, since at least the first Sand Slash can effectively do nothing other than sand attack us. Like, yes, Poison Sting can affect us, but it's going to do basically nothing. And I think we have enough moves for the rest of the team. The question is just, are we strong enough at our current level to actually get through that? We're going to have to find out. We are also slower than a lot of our opponents here, so that could be a factor as well. But I still want to test this out one time just to see if we can get through the rival, or is that Magneton actually going to deal enough damage to take us down? So rival 5 attempt number 1, I'm going for Hypnosis right here just to avoid some sand attacks, and then going into Clamp in order to slowly whittle this Pokemon down. Out next comes the Cloyster, which is also a Ghost type, obviously. It goes Nightshade on me, but I'm going to put it to sleep and go for the Thunderbolt, which is going to do significantly more damage, getting a 2-hit KO. That brings out the Magneton, which goes Thundershock and just get critical hit, 1-hit KOs me. So clearly not great. We're gonna have to try this one again. And it's important to note that if we get poisoned or sand attacked, I think we just have to reset here, because that's not the kind of luck we're looking for on this first Sand Slash. But that's probably the case in any run where you're here with a Cloyster. You're always trying to avoid getting sand attacked or poisoned. But now against this Cloyster, because he has smart AI, he thinks that he should use Ghost type moves, and the only Ghost type move available to him on his current moveset is Nightshade. So he's always going to use that move against us, and we're just getting 3-hit KO'd by that. And because we're also going to be slower than the Magneton that's coming up, I think it's basically guaranteed that we lose this fight, because we have no way to survive against the Thundershock when it comes in. So the rival goes from probably being possible with a normal Cloyster to now being completely impossible, at least until we get more speed than our opponents. That will lean me towards going to fight against, that would definitely lean me towards going to fight against Koga, but I'm going to try my hand at Erica one time here just because she has lower level Pokemon, and will definitely outspeed here. And if we can outspeed and put things to sleep, we can probably get the win, but let's see if it actually works out that way. So Erica attempt number 1, I think this all comes down to Hypnosis luck, because we can see Vine Whip and Mega Drain are doing massive damage here. We do finally manage to get this Tangela to sleep though, only for it to wake up immediately, and Psychic is our best play. It looks like a 4-hit KO on the Tangela. Still, that Pokemon goes down. We get to the Weepin' Bell, only to miss and get knocked out by Razor Leaf. This is clearly just all about the Hypnosis luck. And while yes, I could learn the move Ice Beam, I think we want to keep Clamp on our moveset, so I'm just going to try with this for now. This time we do get Weepin' Bell to go to sleep. We can go for Psychic, which does about half, so when it wakes up, we can still just knock it out the next turn. Gloom is out last. We put it to sleep. Psychic, once again, does about half on this Pokemon, and we knock it out the next turn. So it was only 2 attempts to get through Erica there, and it's all about the sleep luck. We're at 51 minutes, 43 seconds, but like I said, knock like 10, 15 minutes off of that due to me, actually existing in real life, guys. And with that, we're ready to make our way down to Koga's gym at a slightly higher level. We can hopefully beat up on the jugglers down there very easily, and then it's just a question of how we do against Koga himself. That's the spot where we really want Psychic, though we could even think about Dream Eater on the basis that it would allow us to heal. It's just a little bit more luck dependent because you're going for the Hypnosis first, but Gen 1 Sleep is legitimately OP, so I'm interested to see how it actually works out. The biggest factor, of course, would be that we would be able to heal up in battle by using the Dream Eater, which is often OP in Pokemon solo challenges. Like, especially when you're doing itemless solo runs, moves like Rest, Mega Drain, and Dream Eater can truly be the difference between a Pokemon being top tier and being pretty trash, because you're effectively bypassing like one of the major rules of the run. It's one of the reasons why I prefer not to use Rest in my runs, is because you're not only healing but also replacing status. Yes, you leave yourself open for a few turns, but if you're smart about it, you can get through a lot of fights pretty easily by just using Rest strats. So we're going to avoid that for now. We're going to come instead and fight against these jugglers. And the problem here is that we don't have any really good neutral effective damage here. Surf might actually be the solution because we're just not bulky enough to actually survive against a bunch of confusions and Psybeams here. I think we have to put these Pokemon to sleep and then start trying to whittle them down from there. And here we've been having tons of trouble with this first juggler just because of the fact that we seem to never be able to get this Kadabra to stay asleep, and it is faster than us. And a single Psybeam just does massive damage here. Still, once we manage to get that one asleep, we should be able to win. And sure enough, we do. But that took multiple attempts just to beat the first juggler. Surf might be the play there, but it's worth noting that Clamp, when it hits 3 times, is just as strong as Surf. In fact, slightly stronger. So it's not necessarily a situation where Surf was going to be this world beater move that would allow us to win where otherwise we're losing. Against the Drowsy line, however, we are going to generally be faster, though we're outsped by the Hypno here, and we get poisoned. Still, if we can keep this one asleep long enough, we should be able to win, but Confusion, when it does hit, is going to deal massive damage, so we actually lose there as well. And this all just seems to come down to speed. So for the theory that says that Gastly sacrificed speed in exchange for defense, well, that really doesn't seem to be working very well, at least when we get to these Psychic type Pokemon. But normally Psychic types would destroy a Gastly anyway, so I think this is actually like canon approved. But that does make me a little bit nervous for Koga because he's effectively a second Psychic type trader here, and I can't imagine he's not going to exploit our kind of weak stats to deal a lot of damage even with random Venonats. So it took 6 attempts to even beat the second juggler, and the real issue is that we don't have something like Stab Ice Beam here. I could probably have thrown on a physical move, I just don't want to because of the fact that I would have to replace one of my other moves that I think are significantly better, but this is definitely not looking pretty at this point. Still, it's time to take our first shot at Koga, and I really want to see how much damage we do. We're already going to be fairly fast here, so I think we are going to outspeed the Venonats, and they will still want to go for Sleep Powder against us, thinking that's a super effective move. So we can put this first Venonat to sleep. It wakes up immediately, but Psychic is a 2-hit KO there. The second Venonat we also get to sleep, and now we can go into Psychic. Once again, looking like a 2-hitter on that Pokemon. third Venonat comes out, and we're just barely faster than this one, but we do get it to sleep as well. This one might be more like a 3-hit KO as it goes for Sleep Powder here, but after that, its only effective move against us is going to be Psychic, which does some pretty decent damage. We do finally manage to wake up only to get put back to sleep and wrecked. So Clamp might be the solution for this one. Still, we'd prefer to put these Pokemon to sleep since Clamp also isn't a particularly accurate move. And once we do get the Pokemon to sleep, we should be able to win from there. But I think Psychic from the final Venomoth is going to be really strong against us. And I'm pretty sure that's the only move that he's going to want to use. And that could be the end of us. Still, I'm going to go for Hypnosis as he goes for Psychic and he just completely destroys me with the Venomoth. If we can manage to get there on full HP, we might still be able to survive though. So let's just test that out. And I said that we just barely outspeed the final Venonat, but I clearly misread my overlay. We're actually in a speed tie there. So it's a 50-50 shot that he moves first. And in that case, we can get wrecked when he just puts us to sleep with the Sleep Powder. So honestly, one additional level would make this one a heck of a lot more consistent, but I'm not sure I want to burn rare candies because we're a slow level up Pokemon. Still, I think we need the badge boost in speed from this fight in order to really be able to beat rival number 5. So there's not really a choice to be made here other than to just sit and reset on this one if we're going to stay on minimum battles. And a normal Cloyster gets through on minimum battles just fine, so I don't see any way that we can really justify going for a bunch of optional battles here. So this is unfortunately going to be the strategy, and sometimes we're just going to lose because of the speed tie here. This time he X attacks a couple times on the final Venonat though, and that's going to guarantee we get through that Pokemon. And now we are to the Venomoth on full health. It does not one-hit KO me with the Psychic, and now in spite of the fact that it is a flying type and we would love to use Thunderbolt, I think Psychic is the play, but this might be like a 5-hit KO without a special drop. We do get the special drop on the second turn though, and that's going to guarantee it's a 4-hitter, allowing us to finally get the victory against Koga at 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 5 seconds. So definitely not as good as I would have expected just because of our fairly low speed, but now with the badge boost in speed, we are going to be faster than everything except the Kadabra on the rival 5 team. Still, this could be the spot where we're starting to see forgetting withdraw being a massive mistake because we will not be able to use the badge boost glitch. And that could actually make this Pokemon significantly worse as we go through the rest of the challenge. Still, there are a lot of people who always comment that I use the badge boost glitch too much, so I suppose that some people will be really happy that I don't have that as an option. And now we have gotten access to Surf, but in any situation where we can outspeed our opponents, we would be better off going for the move Clamp just because it gives us that extra way to win. So we're really going to have to see if we end up going Surf strats later on or if we just stick with the Clamp for most of this run. Still, that lack of badge boost glitch is going to make Clamp strats significantly harder to actually pull off because yet again, we're not going to be able to outspeed everything to get it to go. But right now, before I go and fight against the rival, I'm actually going to go at least test out my ranges on Blaine. He attacks completely randomly in this version, but since we do not have the ice type, we're not neutrally affected by fire type moves. And that could be the difference between this being a really difficult fight in normal circumstances to becoming super easy because we actually can survive against things like Flamethrower without too much difficulty. But let's find out if that's actually the case. Or is our special stat just too low to actually make it work? We will also pick up Blizzard while we're down here because that could be very useful, especially as we get to the late game, but it is not a same type move, so just keep in mind it's not going to be as strong as what you would normally see with a Cloyster. Of course, if we had Tombstoner, that would raise all of our stats by 6 stages, allowing us to get the ultimate amount of badge boosts and one-hit KO everything, but unfortunately in this one we're gonna have to go as we are. Let's see how we do against Blaney Boy. So Blaine attempt number 1, my strategy is going to be to put this first Ninetales to sleep. It tries to go quick attack and deals no damage, which is perfectly fine. And now let's see what Clamp does. It did not do that much, 20 damage with a single hit. Of course, a 5-hitter would be 100 damage though, so I guess it's strong enough, but we're gonna have to keep this one clamped enough turns to actually knock it out. Flamethrower does not knock us out though, so that's a small victory. Rapidash comes out next, and 3 of its moves cannot affect us, and the last one is Fire Spin, so that's kind of good. We finally managed to put that one to sleep, and now we can go back into the clamp spam, but this is clearly a spot where Surf would be a much better move. Still, as long as he doesn't use too many super potions, we will get through there, getting to the Arcanine. It goes Fire Blast though and ends me. So I think we've finally reached it. We've reached a spot where Clamp is not really the best move anymore, and going HM3 for Surf will be better. I'm going to forget the move. This might be a massive mistake, but we've got Hypnosis if we can't ever keep our opponents asleep. So let's get rid of Clamp so that we have more consistency with our damage here. Back to the Ninetales, it's once again trying to go for the quick attack, but then Flamethrower as we try to put it to sleep. But we can see Surf with a critical hit did over half, and we're going to be able to 2-shot in that case. The Rapidash, if it does get us in Fire Spin, it's not like it's doing massive damage, but we have to hope not to get too many turns of that. Still, we do manage to get through that Pokemon and once again get to Arcanine, only to get Fire Blast. But he's, remember, not using Smart AI, so he could go for Reflect, he could go for Takedown. That's a 50-50 shot there, and if we get that level of luck, we should be able to get through. Still, we do want to put things to sleep just to avoid taking damage from them as much as possible, so Hypnosis into Surf is the play here. Unfortunately, Hypnosis is just really inaccurate, so it's making it a little hard to actually get these Pokemon to go to sleep. But once they are asleep, this is pretty easy as we once again get back to the Arcanine on the 4th attempt, only to get Flamethrowered. He's just not cooperating by using the 50% of his moves that will not knock us out. And honestly, that's the reason why I'm sitting here resetting for this, is just because 50% of the time he will not knock us out with that final Pokemon. And Rapidash is even worse. It's 75% of the time it won't use a move that can even affect us. So getting to Arcanine is pretty consistent here, and this time he finally goes Reflect, which is perfect. That's a move that has no impact on our Surfs. And now we can see this looks like a 3-hit KO as he just stays asleep. So sure enough, we get the victory. An hour, 12 minutes, 14 seconds to get through that. We have taken 26 resets so far in this run, which is definitely a lot more than I expected with a Cloyster to go together with our 3 TMs. So our score is kind of middle of the, like I would consider this low S tier, A tier, but hey, we're progressing. And now with that badge boost in special, we will deal more damage with our Surf, Psychic, and Thunderbolt, which should help a lot here on the Rival 5 fight. Let's see how this actually works out though. So back to Rival 5 after beating up on Blaine. I'm just going to try Surf on the Sandslash, and that is a 1-hit KO, and we get a level up to learn Dream Eater. I'm actually going to learn this move over Psychic. I think it's the better play because at least we can heal up, and most of the time when we're using Psychic, we would also want to put the opponent to sleep. So I think this makes sense. Tell me if you think that's a mistake in the comments below, but for now, we're going to put his Cloyster to sleep and start going into the Thunderbolts. That's a 2-hit KO on that Pokemon in spite of us gaining some levels, but now we are faster than Magneton, so we can put it to sleep. I'm going Surf since it's our strongest move, but even that only did about a third. This is going to be a 3-hit KO. I'm going to go Dream Eater once just to get a better range, and then Surf again to knock that one out. Kadabra comes out next. Psybeam's going to do a lot of damage, and it wakes up immediately from the Hypnosis, so we go down, but we did about half damage there with the Surf. So let's try this one again. It's clearly possible, it's just not going to be super consistent. So back to Kadabra a couple attempts later, we survived the critical hit Psybeam, and now we can Surf, and this looks like a 2-hit KO. Sure enough, we do get it. Flareon, do we go YOLO and just go for Surf? I'm honestly not sure. Its special is much higher than its defense though, and that makes me think that we have to go for the Hypnosis strat as it goes for the Fire Spin on us and knocks us out. Still, it has a chance to use moves that can't even affect us there, so I think we just have to go for that and then try to whittle it down with Surf from there. But who knows, maybe Surf is just a 1-hit KO and I just made the wrong choice there, but I don't think so because of its relatively high special stat. Now, when we get a non-critical hit from Kadabra, we can actually survive against its moves. It's just that that Pokemon has such a massive critical hit chance that's causing us to take even more resets on this battle. So back to the Flareon again. Let's just see what Surf does here against this Pokemon. Yeah, it does slightly over half as he goes Sand Attack. That does allow us to get the victory this time, getting to level 36. Still multiple attempts just to get through the rival there, so it's not like this is an easy run by any means at this point. If we had the badge boost glitch, of course, we would have been able to badge boost our special with a withdraw, and at that point we can probably just one-hit KO sweep everything, but here we actually had to work for it a little bit. Still, we can move on to Jesse and James, who should be a joke at this point. So let's make our way straight to Giovanni. So Giovanni, attempt number 1, we're going to put this Nidorino to sleep. Of course, he can't really do anything other than go for Poison Sting, so this should be pretty easy to get through this Pokemon, but we don't one-shot with Dream Eater. I'll just knock it out with a Thunderbolt the next turn. Persian can do nothing, so we're just going to go Surf here and get the easy 2-hit KO on that one. Rhyhorn should be an easy 1-hitter, and then the final Nidoqueen, again, can't do anything to us, so we're just going to go Surf and get the easy 2-hit KO to knock that Pokemon out. So Giovanni goes down nice and easy, but he's going to learn from this situation here. Next time we meet him, both of his Nidos are going to be running the move Thunder, and that could actually present some problems for us when we get to the end of the game, which is pretty soon because we're just going to have to go fight against Sabrina, and then it's on to Giovanni on minimum battles. So this could be harder than it looks, especially because we're not going to outspeed those Nidos, I don't think, unless we start slamming rare candies, because yet again, we do not have access to the badge boost glitch. Now against Sabrina, there are a lot of strategies we could use. We could try to cheese her with Swift, just letting her flash us over and over again with Abra, and I mean, everybody likes getting flashed by Sabrina, but I'm going to try to beat her with my moveset as it is here. She misses the first flash. I'm just going to put Abra to sleep and go for Surf, but this looks like it might be a 4-hit KO even. Sure enough, it is. So that does not bode very well for us as the Kadabra comes out. Still, she X defends, allowing us to put it to sleep. So we'll go back to Surf here. And this one, again, looks like a 5-hit KO even, possibly. We do manage the 4-hit KO, which is pretty lucky as we get to level 38. Now, Alakazam goes Recover turn 1. Good job, Alakazam. But let's see the range with Surf. It looks like we did 26 damage there, so this is going to be a 5-hitter. We get a nice crit, though, on turn 2. And a crit turn 3, and that allows us to beat Sabrina on the first attempt. An hour, 21 minutes, 3 seconds to get through there, and we're ready to move on to the final gym and Giovanni. Now, I'm not sure how this gym's actually going to go. Are we going to have to slam rare candies to get through the Nidos? I think at the best, we're going to have to slam rare candies before Lorelei to get through, so I don't think it's a big deal if we use rare candies here, but it's not really what we'd love to see. We'd love to save those rare candies for much later on in the run. Still, if we can ever find a way to get to the final Rhydon, we should have a 1-hit KO with Stab Surf. That's what I'm banking on as we go into this one, but we'll just have to see if that actually works out or not. We do have the advantage that we can recover some HP here with Dream Eater, and in fact, I'm even going to grab a Dream Eater TM in case we want to forget this move later on. But for now, it is time to get into the Giovanni fight and just see if we can manage a victory. Of course, if we could levitate, we'd have nothing to worry about from Dugtrio, but instead, all of its moves can affect us and it's faster. So I think we have to put this Pokemon to sleep. A critical hit dig did just massive damage here. So I'm actually going to use Dream Eater to recover some HP. This is just going to be a 3-hit KO and then he guard specs, so we knock him out the next turn. Persian here is free because it cannot damage us. So this is another spot to just recover HP first, and then we can go into Surf to knock this one out. It's going to take a couple turns, but we do get it to go down eventually. Now, Nidoqueen. We want to see a Guard Spec or a Thunder Miss. Here we get the Thunder Miss, which is perfect. We can go for Surf to see the range. It's going to be a 2-hitter, but when it hits Thunder, we get wrecked. And when she just wakes up immediately, there's nothing that we can do. Still, we should generally be able to get to that Nidoqueen on full health thanks to the Persian being just before it. So it's really just a question of whether or not we can get the sleep here, or does it hit the Thunder? We're banking on that 30% chance to miss plus the chance to use a guard spec. This time we do manage to knock out Nidoqueen, getting us to Nidoking. It also hits Thunder and we go down in a single hit though. So once again, Thunder miss or a guard spec. We're talking about like a 38% chance on each of those Pokemon to get through. So it's not like it's going to be super consistent by any means, but it should be possible. That, of course, that does include landing Hypnosis though, which is a pretty big ask. But once we get it, I'm pretty sure they're both 2-hit KOs. They might even go down in a single hit to a crit, at least in the case of the Nidoking. Now, there is one last strategy that's available to us though, that is to try to get a badge boost from the Persian. In this case, not trying to put it to sleep and hoping that it uses Screech against us, but it's not going to use that move very often. Still, we just know any time that we land sleep on the Nidoqueen, it's just a 2-hit KO from there. So we should be able to get through as long as we land sleep on these two Nidos. And once we get to Rhydon, it should be a 1-hit KO, which is why I'm just resetting here to save the rare candies for later on. And because we're just getting straight up 1-hit KO'd there, healing with Dream Eater isn't actually very useful to us. We should really just go through the first two Pokemon as quickly as possible and then try to knock out the Nidos after getting them to sleep. So ultimately, I've tried this a bunch of times. It does not seem to be working. So the only decision I think there's left to make is to slap down some rare candies here. I'm going to go to level 43, which will start by just giving us obviously higher stats. Still, we're going to be slower than the Nidos though, so this might not be enough, but let's test it out. The one big difference here is that Dugtrio is now a guaranteed 1-hit KO, whereas before it was a range. So we can just go for Surf on the first Pokemon. We even get a Screech here, which gives us a badge boost in speed, but that does not quite allow us to outspeed the Nidoqueen. However, at this level, we did survive against one Thunder, and that gives us a little bit of hope. We're still slower than Nidoking though, so we're still going to need a miss somewhere in here, but this should become more consistent if we can just survive one Thunder. So now if we do take damage early in the fight, we will want to recover HP here on the Persian to allow us to hopefully be able to get through. But remember, we did have a badge boost and special on that one. That could have affected the ranges. We might still need to get a Screech from that Persian to make it work. There we got a critical hit, so I couldn't tell if the range was actually going to 1-hit KO us or if it was just because of the badge boost that we survived previously. This time we do get a Screech again though, so that will give us that badge boost that we need. So any non-critical hit we should be able to survive. And there we just need the Nidoking to miss Thunder just like that. Now we can go for Surf and get the 2-hit KO. That brings us to the Rhydon, which is slower. We go Surf, and with 4 times super effectiveness, we just one-shot. Still, we had to burn 4 rare candies there. It's an hour, 33 minutes, and 39 seconds to defeat Giovanni. He clearly learned from his mistakes, getting access to Thunder on his Nidos there to actually have a way to counter our Ghost Cloyster. Normally, yet again, you would just badge boost glitch there on the first Dugtrio in order to get through, because once you use enough withdrawals, you will outspeed everything. And then with Stab Ice Beam or Stab Blizzard, you'll just destroy the entire team. Here, however, without that badge boost glitching strategy, we have actually made this significantly harder on ourselves. So now it's time to take on the rival, where I think we just go Surf on the first Sandslash. That's nice and easy. Execute comes out. We don't have any strong moves for this Pokemon, but it doesn't have great special either. So I'm just going to go for whatever here. Obviously, Surf is the strongest move, but it looks like it's going to be a 4-hit KO no matter what we do. Cloyster comes out next. We outspeed and put it to sleep. I'm going for Thunderbolt, and this is going to be an easy 2-hit KO. Now we have the Magneton, and because of our badge boost, we are faster. We can put this one to sleep, go for the Surf right here, and this is going to be another 3-hit KO on the Magneton. We gotta hope that we outspeed at the end of the game. Kadabra will be faster than us no matter what we do, and Psychic did a lot of damage, but we get it to sleep. We can go for Surf and get another 3-hit KO range from the looks of things. So that one does go down. We've made it to the final Flareon, which is fortunately slower than us. I'm not sure if sleep is necessary here. It looks like Surf is just a 2-hit KO, so I just stopped messing around with the hypnosis when it woke up and just knocked it out nice and easy. Still, the champion is going to be pretty hard at the end of this one, and we're going to have to see if we can get this to work. I think we're going to have to slam a bunch of rare candies just to get through Lorelei, because yes, we have super effective Thunderbolt, but I don't think it's going to do that much damage here. We can pick up Thunder in the power plant as well as an additional rare candy, and there's one more rare candy here in Victory Road as well, but I think those are pretty sus. Against Bruno, we should be perfectly fine though. We've got super effective moves for all of his Pokemon, and he is, of course, Bruno. He's the only one that I think logically loses to the next member of the Elite Four. You know, brief tangent here, but Lorelei clearly beats Bruno. Agatha clearly beats Bruno. Lance clearly beats Bruno, but honestly, I'm of the opinion that Lorelei with proper strategy beats everybody in the Elite Four. She's technically the strongest Elite Four member, which is the entire reason why Lance had to cheat in moves in Gen 1 so that he could actually pretend to be the best Elite Four member. Look at me, I have moves that you can't learn. That's why I'm so great. Otherwise, Lorelei should actually be the final boss of this section. That's just my opinion, but tell me what you think. Anyway, Bruno should get completely wrecked. Agatha, we do have enough moves there, I think, to get through everything. Lance, we're going to have to add on Ice Beam or Blizzard to make that one reasonably consistent. Thunderbolt plus Ice Beam should do a lot of damage there. We won't really need a Psychic type move in that fight. But then for the champion, we may need to go back to Dream Eater via TM so that we have a way to heal in the middle of the battle, because that may be the key to actually getting through there. We'll just have to see, but for now, I'm going to make my way to the power plant once in order to get that extra rare candy. I think it's actually going to be really, really important. It is possible, though, that we have some spots that cheese on Lorelei. Keep in mind that her Lapras is going to think that Confuse Ray is super effective against us. All of her ice type moves she's going to assume are resisted, so she's not really going to want to use them. And even against the first Dugong, it might be sitting there thinking that Rest is its only usable move, and that could give us an advantage. So we'll just have to see. But for now, it's time to make our way to the league and just see if we can manage the victory. So Lorelei, attempt number 1 on her Dugong. I'm just going to go Hypnosis. She's trying to go Rest, so I think this is perfectly fine. Let's just go for the Thunderbolts here, and this looks like a 3-hit KO, so we're getting through that Pokemon just fine. Now out comes her Cloyster, which, in spite of the fact that it's 8 levels higher than us, is at the same speed as us because of our badge boost in speed. So that tells me if we did gain even just 1 level here, we would outspeed this Pokemon. We miss our Hypnosis and it goes for the Nightshade, but that's literally all it's going to do is just spam Nightshade over and over again. I think this is a good spot to Dream Eater to recover some HP back, just because the next Pokemon, Slowbro, will have Psychic to use against us. It is slower though, so we can put this one to sleep. We'll go into Thunderbolt now, and this is going to be a 3-hitter, so we get through just fine. Jinx is out next, and it's going to think that all of its moves are resisted. We resist Ice, and we're technically immune to Double Slap and Thrash. Lovely Kiss, it's also going to deprioritize, so it's actually just going to randomize between the 4 moves, and that's perfectly fine by me. If it just wants to try to go Double Slap or Lovely Kiss or whatever, as long as we don't get a bunch of Ice Punches, I'm a happy boy. And here we will go Surf since it's the same type move. It's not going to do a lot because Jinx has really good special, so this is looking like a 4-hit KO, unfortunately. We do manage to take that one down though. We are faster than Lapras. I put it to sleep. Let's go for Thunderbolt, and this looks like it might be a 4-hit KO. Lapras wakes up. Once it does, I think we need to put it back to sleep just to avoid the Confuse Ray spam, but that's all it's going to use here. It's just going to use Confuse Ray over and over again, and I just don't want to lose from hitting myself in confusion. We don't even care about her Super Potion. A critical hit, Thunderbolt, finally ends it as we get to level 47. So Lorelei turns out not to be too bad. We still have 7 rare candies in the bag, and we're ready to go take on Bruno. And this one should be super easy. So let's just get it nice and quick and make our way on to Agatha. So Bruno attempt number 1, he leads off with an Onyx. We just go Surf and one-shot that Pokemon, nice and easy. Hitmonchan can actually damage us with Fire Punch, good job. We'll just put that one to sleep though in Dream Eater, and that's an easy one-hitter as well. Hitmonlee's out next, and after it goes to sleep, we can simply Dream Eater. There seems to be a little bit of a glitch in my ROM. For some reason, it was able to hit me with Double Kick while it was resisted. Did I do something weird in my ROM? In fact, I did. This ROM hack was actually used originally for a different project where I made fighting not very effective against Ghost, but still able to hit it for some reason. I was clearly doing some shenanigans with Ghosts here, but don't worry about that. We still just heal up and easily get through. Onyx comes out next. We can go for Surf and just destroy this Pokemon. And finally, the Machamp, we just put it to sleep, Dream Eater, and this is going to be a 2-hitter, but he just goes for an X defend. So we easily win right here, and there we go. I mean, Bruno, even if you allow him to actually hit Ghosts, doesn't matter. He's still going to lose 100% of the time because, you know, he's Bruno. But with that done, it is now time to make our way to Agatha. We're going to be slower than a lot of things, but if we can put them to sleep, Dream Eater, Thunderbolt, they're going to be perfectly good moves to use here. Let's see how this goes. So Agatha attempt number 1, we're going to go Hypnosis right off the bat. We get Toxic from the Golbat. That's actually terrible. Now I think we have to land a bunch of Dream Eaters just to survive, and this is just not going to work out with the Toxic, I don't think, because we don't even one-shot the Golbat, and at that point, we're not going to get good enough ranges against anything to actually win. So I'm going to take my first reset. Still, that's only like a 1 in 4 chance that she goes for Toxic. She's just completely random, and fortunately, we can put a Pokemon to sleep when it has a substitute up. So even if Gengar goes for substitute turn 1, that's not actually that big of a deal. Here we get Toxic again from the Golbat though. That's just terrible. So while we do knock it out after that, I'm not sure we're going to be able to win here. And sure enough, she just wakes up. At that point, there's no point in continuing. So clearly that is the one true weakness of this Gastly, is by combining with a shell, it actually makes itself susceptible to Toxic. Still, this time we actually managed to knock out that Golbat. We get licked by the Gengar. It's licking the clam, guys, but still we will manage to knock this one out in a few more hits. As long as it stays asleep, it wakes up again, and Mega Drain is super effective against us as well. Still, once it's back to sleep, we just need to get the ranges to actually knock it out, and there we go. We finally managed to beat that first Pokemon. We get licked by the Haunter. It's clearly getting in on the action, but now we can just go for the Dream Eater, and this is not quite a 2-hit KO. It's a 3-hitter. Still, we knocked that one out. Arbok comes out next. We're going to put this one to sleep. We get a badge boost from the Screech, which is kind of good, but it's not enough to outspeed here against Gengar. It puts us to sleep and now goes Psychic against us, and 2 Psychics is enough to knock us out. Agatha's clearly going to be random, but this is looking like a spot where we do need some rare candies to get through. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go up to level 50 here. We could learn Spike Cannon. I don't think that move's actually useful though, so we'll skip it and instead just try this fight again at a slightly higher level. The biggest thing here is about survivability. We're not going to outspeed things, but we should get better ranges and be a little more survivable against their moves, and that's all we're really banking on. Of course, if they start putting us to sleep, we're going to be in bad shape, so we need to actually wake up here once we get put to sleep by that Haunter, and we just could not land a single Hypnosis. Next attempt, we're getting quite a bit better luck so far, at least. Though Hypnosis is still not really working. We will be able to recover all of our HP here though on the Golbat, getting through to the Haunter. It misses its Hypnosis and we put it to sleep, so we can simply get a 2-hitter on this one once we get it to stay asleep at least. Now we get Paralyzed, which is kind of good in the sense that we can't be affected by Hypnosis, but kind of bad in the sense that we're now going to be slower than everything the rest of the way. Surf is still pretty strong here, so we can use it though. We get confused by the Gengar and we need to get this one to sleep if at all possible. We're just missing all of the Hypnosis here. We finally do get it to go to sleep though, and we can Dream Eater, doing about 45%, only to then get knocked out when it immediately wakes up. So of course we knew coming in that Agatha would be completely random. She always is. It's clearly a winnable fight at this level. It's just not consistent by any means. But honestly, the only way to ever be consistent against Agatha is to be so over leveled that you one-hit KO every single Pokemon on her team while outspeeding. Otherwise, there's always a chance to lose here, no matter how minuscule it becomes. Still, we can get back to the final Gengar again. We get it to sleep with a little bit better health this time. Once again, we land Dream Eater to heal up some HP. We're back to full health. And now let's try Surf when it's fairly low. That does finally get the victory on the 6th attempt as we get to level 51. So not pretty by any means getting through to this point, but we have made it work. And now it's time for Lancey Boy, where I think the only play is to throw on Blizzard. We don't have a same type attack bonus, so I think we need the stronger move. And I'm going to throw it on over Dream Eater. This way we'll have Thunderbolt for the first Gyarados, and hopefully Blizzard just one-hit KOs everything after that. Let's find out. Now, it's also worth noting that at our current level, we are not going to be able to outspeed against the Gyarados, the Aerodactyl, or the final Dragonite. If we drop all the rare candies, we might be able to outspeed there. Otherwise, we might be hoping for a Leer from the first Gyarados, but I don't think it's ever going to use Leer because of the fact that we are a Water Ghost Pokemon. I'm pretty sure that it's just going to use the move Dragon Rage over and over and over again. Let's check this out though. So here against Lance, as we look at his Gyarados, it knows Dragon Rage, Leer, Hydro Pump, and Hyper Beam. It thinks Leer and Hyper Beam are resisted by us because we're Ghost. It thinks Hydro Pump's resisted because we're Water type. So yeah, this one's only going to go for Dragon Rage over and over again. So I'm going to put this one to sleep, and I accidentally used Blizzard here and did like nothing. Thunderbolt was what I was actually going for. Still, Thunderbolt is a 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. Now we will outspeed against the Dragonair, but we miss with the Blizzard, and that's already basically the end of this one. Let's try this one again here. Yet again, we're going for Hypnosis just because we're hoping that we can actually keep this one asleep and not take 2 Dragon Rages. That would be like, you know, a 2/3 of our HP right there. Now Blizzard on the Dragonair is not a one-hit KO at this level, and that tells me, I think, all we need to know, that this fight's not going to be possible here with the last 2 Pokemon on the team still outspeeding us. Normally you could come in here at this level and just completely destroy things with the Blizzard because of the same type attack bonus, but that's just not going to work out in this one. So I'm going to go hard on rare candies right here to gain some more levels. And after we use them all, we get to level 56. We will now at least outspeed against the Gyarados, which will keep us with 40 more HP as we go through the fight. I also think this is a spot to drop some PP ups into Blizzard just in case we get some misses. And we got to see if we actually manage to one-hit KO against those Dragonairs now. If we can, Aerodactyl's only going to use physical moves. We should resist pretty well. And then it all comes down to that final Dragonite. So let's see how this goes. So first things first, against the Gyarados at this level, does Thunderbolt one-shot? It does not. It gets him in a Hyper Potion range though, so we can put him to sleep the next turn and then knock him out with a couple more hits. Now it's about this Dragonair. We go for Blizzard and get the one-hit KO there with a crit. We miss the next Blizzard, but the second Dragonair doesn't have any really good moves for a Ghost Water Pokemon, so we get through with just 2 hits there. Aerodactyl's out next. I'm going for Surf since it's the same type move and effectively the strongest that we can get here, and that brings out the final Dragonite. Dragonite thinks that Blizzard is resisted, it thinks that Fire Blast is resisted, and it knows that Ghost is immune to the Hyper Beam, so it's only going to use the move Thunder, and we might get one-hit KO'd. So we might be resetting for a Thunder Miss on this final Dragonite. It's a 30% chance, but that's going to be the only way we can get through. So it probably doesn't matter how much HP we have left when we get to that last Pokemon, only that we get the miss. If we get the miss and we manage to hit with the Blizzard, we probably win. But here on the Dragonair, we actually found a range where we did not one-hit KO. It's going to be a 2-hit KO on these Pokemon with low rolls. Possibly with a high roll, we can get the win, but that's terrible. Still, Aerodactyl goes down every time, and we're just banking on that 30% at the very end. We should be able to get to Dragonite pretty consistently here, but that does not give me a whole lot of hope going through this one. Still, knowing what I know now, going for Hypnosis is probably just a waste of time. We probably just need to go all in on KOing the first 4 Pokemon and then hoping for that 30% miss. This time we get the miss, Blizzard connects, and we do get the one-hit KO on the Dragonite, but that took a ton of attempts. We're up to 64 resets. So we'll hope that we get exactly 5 resets here on the champion, so we get a very nice final number there. But honestly, I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to get through. Thunderbolt might not actually be necessary here, though. I might go for Dream Eater over Thunderbolt, with the idea being that it at least opens up the ability to heal. And when we get to the final Cloyster here, we can just go for Dream Eater strats on it, assuming that we can outspeed. I'm not sure if we will or not. I always forget the speed on that Pokemon. Still, I think this is going to be the best play to make this more consistent. I will keep Blizzard for the Exeggutor here. I'll keep Surf for pretty much everything else. But let's see how this goes with the Dream Eater strat, because I guarantee we're going to take a hit somewhere here. We're just going to have to hope we can survive against the champion. So champion attempt number 1, obviously on Sandslash, we just go for Surf. We get the nice one-hit KO. He sends out Alakazam next. We need to put this Pokemon to sleep. Psybeam fortunately didn't do that much, so we should be able to get through here as long as it stays asleep enough turns. It's a 3-hitter with a crit, but he goes for the full restore, and then Psychic is just going to end us. We got him just exactly in that range where he would one-hit KO us from there, so clearly a little bit of bad luck, but I think we can get this one to go. Next attempt, we once again get a Psybeam from the Alakazam, and then it wakes up immediately. We still managed to survive though, so if it would just stay asleep for more than a single turn, we would be able to get through. We instead get hit by Kinesis here. That's definitely bad as we go to the Exeggutor because we have lowered accuracy. Still, Blizzard looks like it might 2-hit KO. It misses the range. We get a 3-hit KO there. Magneton comes out next. We do get it to sleep. I'm using Dream Eater here to try to recover some HP. We actually managed to put it back to sleep when it wakes up even. And now one more hit will knock that Pokemon out. We've made it to the Cloyster. And fortunately, we are faster here. We would be faster even without the badge boost from Kinesis. We get put to sleep here though, and now Cloyster is trying to go Hypnosis Dream Eater on us. Still, we managed to get it to sleep, and now we can go for the Dream Eaters to recover HP, knocking that Pokemon out. That brings us to the final Flareon, and look at its moveset. It knows Fire Spin, Reflect, Quick Attack, and Flamethrower. It's going to think that Fire Spin and Flamethrower and Quick Attack are all not effective against our Pokemon, so I believe it's only going to go Reflect. We hit the Surf doing massive damage, it goes Reflect the next turn, and that gives us the victory at level 58. It took 2 hours to get through this one, but we did manage to beat the game on minimum battles without the badge boost glitch with our Gastly Ghost in the Shell Cloyster. 2 hours exactly, 2 hours 39 seconds. We end with a score of 89.5 due to the fact that we had 65 resets there, but only 1 reset on the champion, which is kind of nuts. I mean, the Kinesis I thought was going to end us there, but we actually managed to still get through. We learned 4 TMs as we went through this challenge, and we have managed to beat the entire game on minimum battles. Not always pretty, but possible with this Pokemon. Now, one more important thing to note about this Cloyster is that we were running on 0 DVs in this one, so it is the weakest possible Cloyster. If we had had max DVs, we would have been adding easily 15 points to all of our stats at this point in the game, meaning we would have survived a lot more, we would have dealt a lot more damage, we would have had more HP, so in every way we would have been better. Here, however, we were able to beat the game without the badge boost glitch with the worst version of this Pokemon. Sleep strats obviously were a huge huge part of that, but I mean, that explains a lot of the inconsistency here. The badge boost glitch would have made a lot of these fights just super easy, so take that for what you will. You're probably performing a lot better if you just go badge boost glitch with this Pokemon. Anyway, that is the end of it, as our rival complains that he never made any mistakes. His grandpa comes to completely stunt on him. He's been giving him good Pokemon all this time while giving us things like Magikarps, but this time he finally gives us access to a decent Pokemon, a very special Pokemon, and he's completed his research. He's going to register it in the Hall of Fame, and I hope you guys enjoyed that one. We're going to do a few more kind of fun ones here for this holiday season before we really dive into the end of the year. Now, a quick programming note, I will be taking a little bit of time off at the end of October, start of November for some family stuff, but after that, I will be back through the end of the year, and we're going to be trying to do lots and lots of fun runs. If you have your own ideas, feel free to pop over to the Discord linked in the description, share your ideas. But with that, thanks to everybody who watches to the end. Thank you to the channel members for your continued support, and hope you guys are having a good one. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Later.